All right, now we're good to go. So Janis is back, and so we're excited to have some support on multi-deployments. So Janis, just some context. We are still working on this feature, and we're hoping to wrap up in the next couple of milestones, and your support on it would definitely be helpful. Um, I linked an issue here that
Mm.
Kassio and I believe Vlad, we had also chatted about this one potentially last week about a place that you could help support. Um, and it might be better if Cassio sort of details what would be most helpful on your end. Maybe if is it just this issue or are there other items as well? Um, and then Giannis, if you have any questions as well.
Let's not overwhelm Yanis. I see
Yeah.
he's back. So let's just start with this issue.
Yeah.
No, jokes aside, I don't know if I was already in a borrow when you left, Yanis, but I've been working with the other product planning teams, helping with the work items initiative.
Mm.
So I didn't had much time to continue this feature. I think I did a few other stuff since you left, but not much.
Okay.
And I think you remember that feature, having more than one deploy for per project, more than one page deployment per project, active at the same time. So this way we can have like previews of merge requests or other environments or partial builds, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
To avoid, since this will permit users to create a lot of deployments at the same time, I was concerned that we should have some kind of limits to avoid
Hmm.
unwilling abuse of the object storage of the customers. So I'm working in adding some limits by the number of deployments per namespace. So this way, if they hit that number, they can create extra versions. So this
Yeah.
way, we at least avoid abuse of the object storage. When we shared that with the support team, Matthew did a great communication with support and product area, and the support is concerned about auto cleaning and how to manage those extra versions of deployments.
Yeah.
So we thought in adding some more auto cleaning strategies to avoid having this limit being hit all the time, being reached all the time. So the last issue that you worked before leaving, if I remember correctly, was due to the merge request auto cleaning. So when the merge request is merged or closed, we remove
The
the
deployment
deployment
as
from
well.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So since you worked on that, we were thinking in also add an expire in key for the configuration. So when configuring an extra version of the deployment, a version of the page deployment, you can also set expire in like we already have for
Hmm.
artifacts. So this way you can like, oh, every extra version will leave for 24 hours or something like that, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
So
Hmm.
this would be helpful. And also adding a UI and an API to list all the versions from a namespace. So this way the admin of that namespace could see all the active extra versions
Hmm.
and could clean manually if they want to as well. So if they hit the limits that we're putting in place, they could manually go there in the UI and see how many versions they have
Yeah.
and where they are and clean that through the UI or an
Hmm.
API as well, because a lot of our customers do stuff through API. So those were the main ideas that I had to help
Hmm.
users to manage the extra versions of base deployment. And I thought in get you working on that because you already have some context. We
Yeah.
already worked on adding configuration for GitLab YAML, GitLab CI YAML. So I think it's something that you had some context. I can help you, of course, if you need something, although it's a lot of
Yeah.
new stuff for me as well. But we can work together on that if it's easier for you, or if you just want to get down and do it by
Mm.
yourself as well. No problem for me. Whatever it's best for you. It's just that again, since you had some context, I thought it was a
Yeah.
good place to start.
No, makes sense. So the first thing you suggested, the expire in annotation, that's for the YAML configuration, right? GitLab
Yes.
CI YAML. Okay. Yeah, okay. I already have an idea in mind how to do it. Then should we do a default expire in per instance, per GitLab instance?
Good question. I would add without a default at least at the beginning. But I'm not sure actually. Matthew, do you have any product view on that? Like if we should have or Vladimir for that matter as well, since you know so much about pages. Any ideas on if we should add defaults for the extra versions or something like that?
Vlad gave a strong thumbs up for that. So, Vlad, what's your opinion there?
First of all, yeah, I love the idea. I think we should have the default. I would make it 24 hours, but we can discuss it. And I wouldn't even make it configurable. I would just hard code it and hard code it in the documentation. We can work on adding the configurable UI later. We should definitely allow like never as a value or something like a nil to prevent the auto expiration. Because yeah, if you want like the things we discussed with like partial builds or different versions of the GitLab documentation, you want those things to be available forever. So we should have never as an option. I think it exists for the artifacts as well, right?
Yeah. So yeah, maybe we should first add a merge request just with a default value for the extra versions, for the actual extra deployments, and then add another merge request adding the expire in key where we could configure what value it's used on those versions. What do you all think?
Sounds reasonable.
Okay, I'll edit the description of that issue already to include the default value as well.
Yeah, and sort of touching, Janis, Kassio touched a little bit on the support concern. So that was sort of the major roadblock the last few weeks. But we seem to have worked around that now. So we're fairly confident that there's like no more big blockers moving forward. But I'll let you know if like anything else pops up. And I have another conversation with the director of support today to talk about this.
In what maturity level we have this feature right now? It's not even experimental, right?
No, it's not in any, we haven't released it in any capacity.
Yeah. I think we can.
Sorry, it's not released in any capacity, but there are some internal developers, Lucas, Eipert, and I think Arid as well. They have some projects using the multiple deployments feature, just because they were very helpful during the development of the feature, and they were very keen to start testing, and they already found some bugs. So we have like 3 or 4 projects with this enabled, but it's not released, not even internally yet.
Okay,
Of
cool.
course, Lucas is in there.
Then I think like when we call feature experimental, we can sort of say that we're not providing any support for it, right? So we can start. I love the idea with the default expiration. If we can do it, and we can have like a top level limit on the group, then it should be fine. Like we can just release it experimental. Yep.
Yeah, but I think this feature could impact the non-experimental part, right? Like if we make a bug with the limits and suddenly there's an issue with the normal deployments, like the default way to deploy, that would be under the support contract, right?
Yeah, but under experimental also means that we can turn off the feature flag at any time, right? So it should be fine to release that experimental internally first only, since our bigger customer is ourselves as well. Because another concern that I have, and Vladimir shares that with me, I know it's the internal API bottleneck. Because like For fetching, when GitLab pages fetches the list of all pages for GitLab-org, it's already a lot of projects under that top level namespace with pages. If we add multiple versions under those projects, it will be even bigger payload. So once we turn this on internally, we might see a big bottleneck on the internal API. So if that happens, we might have to work on that before releasing this publicly to avoid that bottleneck on the customers as well.
Yeah, I think this is all the more reason to continue forward with just releasing internally. And that was something that I had chat with Lyle, the support director, about. And that was really the only way he was comfortable moving forward. Janis, he echoed some of your concerns around, what if something goes wrong and we have a flood of support tickets and we have to create a war room, and he wasn't enthused about that. So I think we're being like extra cautious by releasing internally experimental version. So I think we're doing the right things to release it. So there definitely is a little bit of internal pressure though to get it out. Which that was I felt sort of bad for you, Kassio, because they were really pressing you a few milestones ago.
Oh, I still receive some pings on Slack from time to time. Oh, what about that moto?
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like, you'd hope since it's internal, like there'd be some understanding, but people really want it, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think it's a good reason to try to deliver it as soon as we can. But with the size of the team that we have, it's a little bit hard to do everything that we want, right? I think adding, as Vladimir said, adding the limits on the top level namespaces and adding at least the default expiring values, I think already permits us to enable it internally. And then we can work in parallel of that with the other configurations of auto clean and probably some bugs that will raise from that. So this will be a better iteration process, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that path forward. A few more questions. How does the feature flag work? Like if it's disabled, can you still create the version deployment? The existing ones, do they work?
If it is disabled, the build doesn't fail, but it doesn't create a new version.
Okay.
It's something that someone complained at the past, like, oh, I thought this was working because blah blah blah, but there is no message during the build that it didn't create an extra version. So it's also something that maybe we should do, but I don't know. Adding a message just to let the users know that the feature flag is disabled seems like a work that's removed very fast. So I'm not sure if we should do that.
No, but I'm worried about a different thing. I'm mostly interested in like that the deployments shouldn't work if you disable the feature flag, even the existing ones.
Oh,
because
yeah, they won't work as well.
Okay,
if
nice.
I'm not wrong, I have to see the code again, but if I'm not wrong, the lookup path or something like that, somewhere on the internals of the API, I check for that feature flag again before fetching the list of deployments. So it should be fine.
Nice. So we can limit the impact to the API performance. Okay. Okay, then kind of on the product level, what happens when the limit is reached? If, for example, the deployments aren't auto-cleaned?
My idea is to, if the limit is reached, we show a message during the build. In the build, you're gonna have a message saying, oh, you cannot create this version, a version-based deployment because your limit was reached. Something like that.
Okay, how is it going to be shown? Like it will be like current pages built, but with the text on the hover, or?
That's a question that I don't have an answer yet because I'm still working on all those internals that I don't know very well. So I'm not sure if I can put like a a warning on the top of the page, or if it needs to be just a error on the job build itself. I have to search on how those things happen.
Yeah, and we
Okay.
want to make sure, I think that in that have some context towards documentation. So I think we should really try to polish the documentation before GA. That's another thing that can help remediate some of the support concern. That way they're not, people aren't going to their support person rather than the documents.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? I
There
think
is some
we're
there is some documentation already. I have a personal to do for a few months because I know that even the merge request auto clean is not documented yet. So we should also add documentation for all those auto clean features that you're gonna have, like the merge request, mentioning that when the merge request is closed or merge, the extra version is removed, the default expiring, and all those things should be documented as well to avoid the least surprise for the customers when configuring versions.
Okay. Kassio, can you open an issue for more docs with anything which you have in your head right
Yep.
now?
Just see if
Cool.
I'm already.
One more question on the limits. Do we count the normal deployments against
No.
this limit? No? Nice.
No, the limit is just for extra deployments. So the full deployment of pages. The idea of this feature in my mind is that it is an extra on top of the sites that people already have. So this feature shouldn't ever block or interfere in the main version of their site. We can break extra versions, we can break limits and all those things, but never the main version. That's the way I think we should work. And for this reason, we shouldn't count. The name of the limit, if I'm not wrong, is like limit of extra versions already. So, and I define that extra versions is everything that's not related to the main branch.
Nice, nice. Good. All right. Yeah, so much to keep in the head.
just looking when this milestone ends next Friday. Yeah, Janis, I don't want to like overwhelm you. I know you just got back, so I hope this is
I'm
like
not overwhelmed yet.
yeah. I hope this is like a good transition item back into the swing of things. And
Yeah, actually, it's not hasn't moved that much from where I left off. I think I can get started on this.
And like, even though this milestone is close, yeah, like we are working on it. If we can get it into this milestone, nice. Otherwise, we'll just put it on the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's too urgent. Okay. All right. One more thing. It's more of an idea, but I wonder what you guys think. That later I would love to have a setting on the top group level that would allow you like auto cleaning when the new deployment is created. So for example, like we have a limit of like 1,000. You created 1,001st. We just delete the oldest deployment in the same scope, which is a top level namespace. So it kind of, auto recycles itself. And then you don't need UI, you don't need to go to the UI, you don't need to go to the API. Everything just works, just the old deployments aren't available.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understood that. Like, if I use the same path prefix, I remove the one that exists. I don't see.
You can like if you use the same prefix, we should just delete all the previous deployments, right? Yeah, but if you use like imagine that we have a limit of, okay, 10 deployments, deployment 1, deployment 2,
Mhm.
so on up to deployment 10. And 10 is the limit. You create the deployment 11 with the prefix deployment 11, so we find the oldest one, which will be deployment 1, we delete it automatically. So the cleanup is completely automated and you don't need to use this interface.
Yeah, let's create an issue for that, because I'm concerned that this might create a surprise element for the customers. Like, why is my extra version being removed before they expire in or something like that? But I understand it might be a good idea.
Yeah, that's why I
Let's-
was suggesting a setting
let-
for it.
In this case, I imagine a UI that doesn't say removed, where it's just gone and no longer there, but kind of deactivated, limit reached, like with a message that tells them.
Yeah, maybe what we could
Archived.
do,
Call it
again,
archived.
we should discuss that in the issue, but since the idea came up, maybe what we could do is like pause the job and make it as a manual job. Oh, your limit was reached. If you continue this job, you're gonna archive the deployment X. So like a confirmation to really archive a former delete or archive a former deployment, but letting the user be more explicit about what's going on. Because again, my concern is like because the limit is in the top level group, sometimes deployments on one project could interfere in deployments on another project.
Right.
And those projects could have different teams working on them. And this could be like one project could clean deployment on another project where another team works, and this could generate some impact internally on teams. I agree that having this as a configuration is already a plus, but I think making it more explicit as well could be better.
Okay. Do we already have an issue for showing the message limit is reached?
I'm considering that the issue itself of the limit, which is the one that I'm working, I'm coming back to it today.
Okay, cool. I just now realized that if you just return the error or so, like in the pages deploy this deploy service, there is a way to just mark the pages job as failed and with a reason. And that will be shown as a red pages job with a reason on the hover. It's not ideal, but as a first step, I think we can do it. Yeah.
I'm just confirming that we're gonna have the message by adding that on the issue description.
Okay, nice. Cool. We are a little bit over time, but I think that was super productive. Thanks, everybody. Any last points?
I'm just excited to have Janis back and support on this. So it's a
Me too.
huge plus. Yeah. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, I got the firework.
All right.
Awesome.
No
Super.
pressure here for me, right?
There's no prep.
All right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Sounds
Thanks,
like a great
everybody.
thing to get started anyway.
And
Very
again,
sensible.
Janis, if you need any help or anything, just let me know. I'm here. I know it coming back after so long can be overwhelming, not just because of this issue, but everything else that you have to learn that happened. And we had a summit in the middle, so can be a lot of stuff to see and watch and everything. But if you need anything, just let me know, and I'm here to support you as well.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome.
See
Thanks,
y'all.
everybody. Have a good day. Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.